Hey everybody, this is Robert from goldsilverpros.com, and I have a very special guest today. It's Rory Hall, author of The Daily Coin and the Gospel News Network. Rory, how are you?
I'm doing well, Robert. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on. I've been following your work for a very long time. I think you do great work on the precious metals sector, and you also talk a lot about what's going on politically and culturally in the U.S., which is why I'm really excited to interview you today. I think we've got a lot to talk about.
I would agree. There's a lot going on in our world, and it seems like that things are, as soon as everything starts to get stabilized, it falls apart again. So,
yeah. Well, let's start. If you can give us just a description of your work on the Daily Coin and what you tend to focus on for your readers.
Okay. The Daily Coin was launched in 2012. No, 2012. Yeah, 2012. And I went full time at the end of 2014. Mm-hmm. And that's what I've been doing for the past 6 years exclusively. And then in 2018, I launched Gospel News Network. And at the Daily Coin, I focus on precious metals, the economics and finance of what's going on in our world, look at the banking crimes, look at preparedness, what we need to do to take care, to better take care of our family, which includes health. So I look a little bit at some alternative health as well. And it's a combination, both sites are a combination of aggregate news and original. I do a lot of writing for both. And as you're well aware, I used to produce a lot of videos. I've slowed way down on producing videos simply because of the censorship by Google. They've attacked, Google attacked the Daily Coin, both the website and my YouTube channel back in October of 2016. It has been relentless since then. I have 137 documents in a file waiting for a class action lawsuit so that I can bring those to the table to show the depth of censorship by Google. I've talked to a number of attorneys. I can't get any traction on my own. So I'm just waiting for the class action lawsuit or the DOJ, somebody in Congress to actually do their job, which would be nice. It would be different. So, but I do a lot of reporting on the precious metals. I really love one of the things that Alistair McLeod taught me a number of years ago was that there's a certain calm or happiness or joy that people that are involved in precious metals, in particular gold, seem to be a calmer sense of their nature. And I would tend to agree with that there's something about the nature of gold that when you have it close to you, the closer that it is to you, the calmer and happier and more joyous you become. And Robert Kiyosaki, he said that the closer that you get to if you hold gold, he carries gold in his pocket all the time because he believes that it brings more wealth, that it attracts more wealth to his life by just carrying gold. It's just like, okay, I can get behind that. And he said he's I believe, and I don't hold me to this, but I believe that he actually says that the more gold that you carry with you, the more wealth that you attract to you, which would make sense. I like it. I hope that it's right. So.
It wouldn't surprise me at all because I think gold is the ultimate store of value. It's a store of labor and a store of wealth over time, and nothing else really is. None of these paper products or derivative products really do. So,
nope.
I think when you're involved in those other markets, you're trying to chase things, and maybe that's symbolic of chasing happiness. Whereas if you own gold, then you're at peace with yourself and you understand, where you are, and perhaps that's why Alistair said that people tend to be more grounded and more happy with themselves.
I really like that, and that actually makes a whole lot of sense as far as the reason that people would, that he of course there's no science to it, but it makes perfect sense based on what you just said, because people that have gold and have silver, they're more grounded. They're not out having to chase things down and in their life, and it just makes things a lot easier.
So let's talk about gold for a minute.
That's good.
Given what's happened with the economy, we had the coronavirus here, and I've got my thoughts on whether that's legitimate or not. But basically, we had these. What I was talking to Alex Newman a couple of weeks ago from the New American on this. This is unconstitutional. All of these economic lockdowns, the
Yes.
shutdowns of government. You can't do that through an executive order. It's not what executive orders are meant for, whether it be at the state level, the mayors, or at the presidential level. But regardless, what's happened is we have a lot of shutdowns. And, how do you think that affects the gold market?
Well, it depends on how you look at the gold market. And I look at the physical gold market. And as we've seen a couple of months ago, Robert, I wrote an article asking the question, is $2,000 gold a future event or past scenario? And depending on your view, which my view is of the physical, then $2,000 gold already happened. $2,100 gold has already happened. That's something that was back in March, April. You couldn't find gold. If you wanted to go and purchase a 1 ounce gold eagle, it would have set you back $2,100 if you paid for it with a credit card or PayPal. Now, if you would have paid for it with bank wire, then it would have, or if you would have had acquired it through a bank wire, then it would have set you back just under $2,100. So there's, what is the true acquisition cost? To me, the true acquisition cost is what it costs me when I go to my local coin dealer, or when I step up to the plate with an online dealer. Either way, do I really care at that point what the COMEX says or the LBMA? They have no skin in the game for me at that point. Zero. Right. People can talk about premiums or whatever. It's nonsense. It's what is it going to take for me to get it? So, but you ask what it would the effect be? We've already seen that. We've seen that in spades, that people freaked out. People lost their mind. And now if you listen to financial networks or any of the talking heads on TV, or listen to people that are online about what's going on in the gold and silver market, they don't talk about the 9+ trillion that the Fed produced between September and January. They don't talk about the fact that we are I think an additional 9 trillion has been produced just over the course of the past 6 weeks or so, 10 weeks. They don't talk about that. Gold is sure trying to sniff it out. I mean, that's the reason that it's still, I was looking at Silver Eagles before we started. I didn't get a chance to look at where gold is, but silver is right now. You can't touch an American Silver Eagle, either a 2020 or a random year. Both of them are right now between 25.50 and about 27.50, somewhere in there, depending on how you transfer the funds for it, whether it's PayPal, credit card, or a bank wire. So that's my take on what's going on with the precious metals right now. So, and once again, these acquisition costs, they have nothing. They don't care what's going on at the COMEX or LBMA. They don't play a part.
It's a paper market, and that's been demonstrated so many times over. Almost all the contracts are settled in cash, or the contracts are rolled over to the next month. You do not have a lot of gold exchange, although there have been some reports I'm seeing from people that follow the gold and silver markets that people are starting to stand for a little bit of delivery on their metals. on the markets, which has kind of thrown those into a tizzy. And it's the interesting thing to me, though, is even though you described the situation with gold and silver and the premiums in the real physical market, if you actually wanted to go and get it, we haven't even reached a major debt issue in the United States, or we haven't had that big stock crash that would actually freak people out. It was just basically some temporary shutdowns of the local economies in certain places, which did hurt things, but we're not talking about a major event. So, it looks like to me the end of the 30-year bond bull market. It looks to me like the end of this stock market. It looks to me like we're going to have maybe some sort of debt default throughout the world. I mean, it's just massive debt everywhere. What happens to gold and silver in that situation? What are the physical prices going to be, and could we find it then?
Well, whether or not you can find it is going to be the real question, and what you will be able to acquire it, gold or silver, what currency you'll be using, I don't know. Is it what we're using today? A lot of people seem to think that that's not the case. And I go back to what Christine Lagarde said back in 2017 when Bitcoin was going completely nuts, 2016, 2017. Christine Lagarde, who at the time was the acting director of the IMF, she said, direct quote, "I want to see a working cryptocurrency by 2021. So what does that mean? I don't know. How it's going to impact what's happening right now, your guess is as good as mine, and that's all that it would be a guess. So as far as what's coming down the pike, I'm not in those private meetings, so I can't say. And anybody that says that they know what's going to happen, I'm looking at them sideways, because they don't attend those private meetings at the BIS that go on once a month that I reported on several years ago, where you've got about 50 people from around the world, all the central bankers, who get together and decide our fate. And that's, it's a joke. So where gold and silver go from here, I don't know. The real question is, will you be able to get it? That's the real question. I mean, if you listen to any of the precious metals dealers, I mean, Andy Scheckman over at Miles Franklin has been on every time I turn around, he's coming out talking about how he's shuffling everything around to be able to get his hands on supply. And supplies, according to what I'm looking at, this morning, there's a couple of the bigger online dealers that are running sales right now. And that tells me that supplies are loosening up a little bit, but they haven't really come down. I mean, they peaked at around $28, $29. I think that Silver Eagles got up to right at $30 an ounce a couple of months ago, 6 weeks ago. So they've only come down a little bit from there. And so what does that mean? And gold has come down quite a bit. I think it's around 18, something like that, around $1,800. Let me see if I can pull up somebody.
Yeah, I did. To that point, I did go through Miles Franklin to get a few gold eagles, prior dated gold eagles, in April, and it took me about 3 weeks to get them, and I was paying about $130, $140 premium, but that was the cheapest I could find. It was cheaper than any other site, and a lot of the big sites like APMEX didn't have any stock.
Right. See, and that's the thing. Okay, and right now in JM Bullion, credit card, PayPal for 1 ounce American Gold Eagle is $19.34. If you pay for it with a credit card, with a check or bank wire, it's $18.57. So once again, they've not really. While it's come down, it's a lot higher than it has been. The last I acquired a 2014 1 ounce. I think it's the only 1 ounce gold coin that I own, but I paid $1,200 for it cash. So that's a very significant difference in what it is today, just a few years later. So where it goes, I don't know, Robert. I mean, there's so much uncertainty out there with everything. The one thing that we know that is certain is that supplies are very tight. Look at what happened when they shut down mines. Some of the mines still haven't come back online. They shut down the major refineries. The major refineries were only given a green light to come back online because the LBMA needed gold. Now, they'll never admit that, but they were having a hard time with this exchange for physical nonsense that they're doing. They ran out of gold. And they said, well, we got to have some gold from somewhere.
Well, then they went to the COMEX and they had this goofy, I don't know, it's called an ACE or something. Here's a 400-ounce bar. We'll break it into 100-ounce fractional ownership. And I mean, it was just like, you got to be kidding me. Who is buying into this stuff?
Which is why I don't look at any of that, because this is what criminals do. What criminals do is when they get backed into a corner is they change the rules and they exonerate themselves and make you and I the criminals, period. So anybody that's why it's why bother? Why even bother looking at it? Because it doesn't make any sense. I don't, like I said, a minute ago, when I go into my local coin dealer shop or when I go to pull the trigger on acquiring some online, I don't check the COMEX and go, well, it should be $17 for that Silver Eagle. It has nothing to do with anything. It has nothing to do with the transaction that I'm about to make. Nothing. They're not related at all. Yeah. And that's what I think that people get confused about because they're not related. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but I don't think anybody's looking at that at this point. I think they're looking at, can I get it? What can I charge for it? What am I being charged to acquire it? And what am I going to be able to make a profit on it? Where am I going to be able to make a profit? That's all they're looking at.
Yeah, I think the veil's totally been lifted off of the whole futures market mess. And I think that we had Scotiabank closing their gold desk.
There you go.
How many ever years they were doing it. You had HSBC. I know you wrote an article about this on your website about HSBC losing $200 million in one day. In the futures market, because a lot of what goes on there is shorting of those contracts, which has the effect of hammering down the price. There's actually, interestingly, a document on Yale University that talks about, the history of manipulation in commodities markets. And you have a lot of people saying, oh, there's no manipulation in the gold and silver markets or the sugar market or whatever commodities market. And here, Yale University has this 500-page paper documenting 130 years of manipulative practices in the market. And I'm just like, this has been the norm. I mean, it's the way the markets have always been. That's why the CFTC exists. That's why regulators exist. If the markets would operate without manipulators, naturally we wouldn't have to have the regulations. So, but I think it's become obvious. You don't even have to make the argument anymore. People see the divergence in the physical price, and then that's where I think people begin to see, okay, something's wrong with that market over there. We're not paying attention to that.
Right. We're not. What are they doing over there? And Scotia, they got out because they lost an equal amount as HSBC. And the thing about HSBC's loss is that they actually admitted that was their total annual profit gone, poof, in one day. In one day, they lost their whole year's worth of profit. And I'm sure they've made it up by now because it's been more than a few days, and they're not gonna lose. They never lose. That's the thing is that they never lose. Just ask JPMorgan how they're doing. they never lose. So it's only you and I.
They never lose, but they have a list of lawsuits against them a mile long. Catherine Austin Fitz of Solar Report has documented that, and she sends out a book, and it's a book of lawsuits against JPMorgan, and it's literally just a book of lawsuit 1, lawsuit 2, lawsuit 3. It's
Yeah.
like 20 pages long.
Yeah.
I don't know how they don't get shut down, but I guess that's, for the regulators to figure out.
Well, hopefully, the Department of Justice has floated this idea of RICO charges being brought against traders at JPMorgan and
Yeah.
former traders, which would bring JPMorgan and HSBC, Citi, Wells Fargo, Royal Bank of Scotland, the whole lot of them. It would bring all of them, because I don't understand why RICO charges weren't brought against these banks back when they were in a court of law. All the banks I just listed for LIBOR rigging, for the London interbank overnight rate rigging, which impacts. I mean, think about this, Robert.
Everything.
Every human being on planet Earth is directly impacted if they have anything to do with an interest rate on this entire planet. They were impacted by that crime. The Forex rigging, same group of suspects, once again fined for rigging the currency market, and that directly impacts everybody. That literally impacts every person on Earth. And for there not to be RICO charges brought against these entities is ludicrous. It's as bad as the rioters being said, it's okay, there's no problem with them looting, they're just letting off steam. I live in Nashville, and there was a guy that took a machete and hacked a couple with a machete.
Oh, gosh.
And they said coronavirus, he was letting off steam. Didn't file charges.
Yeah, where are we in society when we start excusing that type of behavior? Part of what we see going on is just people, it seems like society is sort of losing its mind a little bit. Like all of the norms that we grew up learning about, that our parents would teach us about, that, the way that you interact with people and greet them and respect their property. It seems like a lot of this is just in the last month gone completely out the window. And I did a video on my website about the U.S. social contract breaking down between the government and the people, specifically the police. I know you've written about this as well. What's going on? I mean, it just seems like the police seem to be militarized, and I don't want to criticize police too much because I know they have a hard job, but they have military style vehicles. They've got riot gear on. You have people who are inflamed because of the death of George Floyd, and they're staying at home, and they maybe don't have a job because of coronavirus, so they got time on their hands, and you've got this situation. What's your read on that? I know you've done some research on your side about what's been going on.
Been looking at the situation with the police for a number of years. Once again, dive back into Killed by Police, into that killedbypolice.net. The Guardian released The Counted, which was a database of the people that were killed in the United States. I think it was in 2016 and 2017. They haven't updated it in forever. But I was doing a lot of research when there was a 12-year-old child that was murdered by police in Cincinnati, Ohio, named Tamir Rice. Is a 12-year-old child, and he was playing in the snow. He was at a picnic shelter in a park. It's all captured on CCTV. Police pull up, open the door, and gun this child down. This is a child. He had a toy gun, and he's by himself, and they just roll up and just killed him. It was just like, okay, this is not happening. This is not happening. But it did. And that was and soon after that, it was Ferguson and the situation in Baltimore. And just everything just started just rolling downhill from there. And so I spent a lot of time that year studying what was going on, and come to find out everything that's being reported by mainstream media. I know this is going to come as a shock, but it's just wrong. It's false. The statistics are all wrong. First of all, there is no war on police. There's a website called Officer Down Memorial Page, ODMP, and they keep track of all the police that are killed throughout the year. It's been 149, and here's the thing, Robert, is that it's not just a citizen that kills a police. It's for every reason: heart attack, or domestic abuse, or 9/11 illness, which is a big category for what's this ODMP website. It's a huge category, and once you start stripping out all of these different numbers, you start to see that it's like 120 versus 1,004 last year, that citizens that were killed by police. It was 1,004 citizens killed by police in 2019. Mm-hmm. The people being upset, they have a right to be upset. They don't have a right to burn businesses down. They don't have a right. No one has the right to just randomly attack another person, which is happening more and more and more. You don't have the right to riot and loot and do some of the things that are happening right now. You don't have the right to take over a section of downtown Seattle. You don't have that right. There's nothing about that is part of the, like you said, the social contract. It breaks every norm that we have as a society. It breaks everything that is part of our society. What we're witnessing, Robert, is nothing short of a cultural Marxist uprising, with the erasing of history, with the genocide of one group of people versus another. And people can say whatever they want, but it's happening. If you just open your eyes and do some research, you will see very, very clearly what's actually happening. And once again, if you go to the exact opposite of what corporate media says, you will find the truth. So whatever they say, if they say that the sun is shining, you need to look out the window to confirm that it's a full moon that's actually in the sky, because chances are that's what's actually happening. And the reports that we're seeing all across the country are nothing but it's mind-boggling to me what's actually happening. It's just it's beyond the pale. I would have never in my life thought that what we're witnessing would ever happen in this country. I would have never thought that. Would have never thought that.
I wouldn't either. When you're burning a Wendy's down because there's some misunderstanding, somebody going through a drive-through, and you burn it down, that's not rational discourse. That's not right. Any sense of rationality, rational human behavior. That's definitely just a complete overreaction. You've got people, running over police in Buffalo, New York. There was the police were trying to stop but they were trying to back off some protesters. And an SUV came through and ran over a couple of the police officers. The video I put up on my site as well. So there's just been a lot of violence and violent reaction. And what I'm noticing as well is I'm noticing a lot of propaganda towards having police officers or the authority figures take a knee or bow down to protesters, which I don't believe has anything to do with their role there. They're there to keep the peace. And I don't know that we need institutions bowing down to any protest, regardless of what that protest is. People have a right to protest, but that's it. And just because you're not, it's all about perception. I agree with you. And I wanted to talk a little bit about like a Marxist color revolution. My wife grew up in Cambodia, and when she was 6 years old, the Khmer Rouge came through, and they started killing people. They killed all the educated people. Her parents were both teachers. And so they had to fake their occupations so that they didn't get murdered, but they did get put into concentration camps. with the Viet Cong. And they ended up escaping. They had to walk through the killing fields, which, if you don't know what that is, there's a movie about it. There's basically landmine fields outside the concentration camps. You have to navigate your way through. And if you step on a landmine, of course, some of her family died in it and going across there. I was asking her about her opinion of what's going on in our country the other day. And to this point, Rory, she hadn't said anything, but I kind of felt some unease about the way she was perceiving this. And we were in the car driving. I think we were going to dinner with the kids. And usually she won't talk about this in front of the kids. She completely opened up and she's like, this is what happened in my country. I remember being 6 years old and seeing these kind of events, people burning down buildings because they didn't agree with you, and people not respecting authority and not respecting the police. And I thought, wow, I mean, that's very, very powerful for somebody that came from, a communist takeover of her country that was very bloody and very genocidal. To say that she sees similarities in what's going on in the U.S. Of course, it's not at the same scale, but that really kind of
Not yet.
me. Not yet, yeah. But I do agree. I think as long as we acquiesce to this and say it's okay for people to enact violence as a form of free speech, I don't believe violence is a form of free speech.
No.
I believe we have laws against violence. I believe you can say what you will, and we have to support each other in that. But once you get to the point of destroying property or taking away somebody else's right, you've crossed the line. I think the Constitution is clear on that. But it just shocked me, how quickly we kind of got to that point, and her observation that was just like what she saw in Cambodia. And that was a horrible situation. Pol Pot, and the Khmer Rouge and the Viet Cong killed 6 million people. I mean, that was not a little thing. It was on the level of what happened in Nazi Germany. So, when you have someone saying something like that, really kind of wakes you up and say, what are we doing? Is this a situation that we want to be involved with, or how do we get control of this situation? I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but how do we react to this?
That's an excellent question. And does violence meet violence? I don't know if that's the right answer or not. It kind of seems like that's what's being forced upon us right now, because how much are we supposed to take? How much, what's going to happen when these gangs, these marauders, move out of the city and move into the suburbs?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what's going to happen then? Are they going to, do you honestly think that if they start going through the suburbs, where all the firearms are,
mm-hmm.
that they're not going to be met with violence? Is that why they've not gone into the suburbs? Is that why they've not started going through neighborhoods? Because that ain't going to be tolerated. I mean, I don't see it. I mean, if you go into downtown into a business, the odds of somebody shooting back are very minimal.
Mm-hmm.
You can go in, you got free reign, you've only got 4 or 5 people. They're, 95, 99% of those people are going to be unarmed, and you're going to be able to have your way with them and do whatever it is that you want. But that's not going to be that wouldn't be the same if they go out, even outside the city of Seattle. You're going to find people that are going to shoot back. So as far as what's actually happening, once again, this is something that is completely unknown. We are in unprecedented times, and we don't know. We can look at history. We can look at things like what your wife went through.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's as far as history is concerned, it's brand new. That's new history. It's not like even the Civil War. I mean, if we go back and look at the American Civil War, we can see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And is that where we're headed? I don't know. I mean, I don't know I really don't know. And it's, I do want to say something about, make a comment about something you said just a moment ago, and that's these people taking a knee before other people. Never bow a knee to anyone except Jesus Christ. That's it. If you are bowing before anyone else, you lose, period. And we're not supposed to do that. I would never do that. I would say, kill me now. I would before I did that. I would never, ever do that. Never would I bow down to someone else, to another human being.
That, and just to add to that point, you're not supposed to take an oath or give an oath to anybody but God as well. And
correct.
We do this in society all the time, and it's if you're a Christian, you're not supposed to do that. It says very clearly in the Bible, the only oath you give is to God. You don't give it to any other man.
This is the real problem with our society, is that we have removed everything that's real. We have turned that into the unreal. We have taught our children, we have taught our society for the past 50 years that God is wrong, that family is wrong. And look at where that's gotten us. You just look at those two things. That's it.
Well,
and let me finish this, because what do precious metals have? What are they going to do in light of everything that we've just been talking about? What role do they play? How can they have a role? Is it going to matter? I mean, honestly, it's like, okay, wait a minute. What are we talking about here? And we've gone from gold and silver into marauders, and those two things.
The sign of the times,
Well, I mean, how do you square that circle? How? It's not rhetorical. I'm asking, how do we do that? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying, I honestly don't know. It's not that I'm ignorant. It's not that I'm uneducated to what's going on. I'm looking at it going,
yeah. A lot of it, just kind of looking at my corporate experience for a little while, a lot of what I've done the last 20 years is risk management. And part of why I got into gold and silver was after the crash in 2008, I started looking at how do I manage risks, not only for myself, but my family, my children, my wife, and my friends. And that's why I got in gold and silver, because it's the ultimate way to hedge economic risk as well as some political risk. But what we're talking about here at the second half of this conversation is more cultural, I think, more than anything. Yes. Cultural and spiritual. I think there's a great spiritual war going on. I don't want to dive too much into that for this discussion, but that's a topic maybe you and I can talk about later. But how do you manage those risks? And a lot of it has to do with whatever your belief system is, whether it be Christian or otherwise. Be true to that belief system and make sure that you're being honest with yourself about it and you're looking at the situation realistically. I mean, definitely don't put your head in the sand and say, I'm not going to worry about this as a blow over. It's not going to blow over. Events like this don't blow over. There are always consequences, and there's the law of reaction as well. So we've got it going one way now. There's going to be pushback going the other way. You're going to see this, I think, start to escalate a little bit. One other thing I want to point out when we're talking about faith in God, the way that my wife got out of Cambodia and got over to the United States was she was sponsored by a Christian organization called the World Church Organization, I believe it was called. And a lot of compassion went into the people that provided homes for people escaping those atrocities. And if not for that organization, I would not have met my wife, and we wouldn't have the two beautiful children that we have. So, I think having faith is definitely a good thing in these times, because it gives you the ability to empathize and to reach out and help people in situations of need where you have that capability. And, I'm definitely thankful that the church did that for my wife at that time.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I'm really leaning on more and more every day is my faith, and I'm trying to dive deeper into that aspect of it, and be perfectly honest, Robert, that has a lot to do with me not making videos as much as I used to anymore. Also, because some things are just more important than others, and it's I have to make choices. I mean, and one of the one of the choices that I'm making at this juncture in my life is that faith is much more important than anything else that's going on in my life, because that will be the foundation upon which my family stands, and it will help us through any of the situations that are currently unfolding in front of us. And like I said, when I say that I don't know what's going to happen, I mean that sincerely. I don't know. But what I do know is that I have a choice of how I respond and react to it. That's what I have. That's what I do know. And that's what makes the difference between what we see on TV and what we see in our lives, and how we react to situations, and where we stand, and what is guiding our life. So, and you said it, I love what you said at the beginning of this, when we're talking about the joy and the happiness and the stability, people that have gold and silver. And you said that
Talking about how people that are invested in finance tend to chase things. I think they're chasing happiness, but if you
right,
have gold, I think you found your happiness.
it's not that you're no longer chasing. You're no longer chasing because you have that stability.
Mm-hmm.
You have that's part of your foundation.
Mm-hmm.
That is that you're not out here trying to make something happen. You already have. It's already happened. It's already there. You don't have to go out there and go and continually go after it, because what's the point of having a job? What's the point of getting an education and doing all these things? The whole idea behind it is to be able to take care of your family, be able to make sure that everything in your life is stable, and to make sure that you have the things that you not only need, but the things that you want. And that's what gold and silver can do for our lives. And we don't have to go out and continually chase after something if we already have it. And that's the piece that I think that's been missing from my understanding of what precious metals are. And I'm really grateful that you have now finished that circle, completed that circle. So thank you very much for that.
Absolutely. I think we covered all the topics we wanted to chat about today. Definitely would like to reach out to you again in the future if you're interested, and continue the conversation, especially as things I think are going to get more interesting out there.
Absolutely. I mean, I think this is, for me, it's been great. It's been a great conversation. I love talking to you. So I would be honored to speak with you some more.
All right. Well, hang on after the interview. I want to chat with you a little bit more. But for everybody, this
Okay.
has been Rory Hall, the Daily Coin. Thank you so much, Rory. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Everybody take care.